Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for hopping on another phone call with Freedom. I am your host, Sarah Jane. Thanks for showing up in my corner of the world where we talk the universe. So if you're familiar with my work, you know that I like to create this space so that we can think expansive thoughts. Because in case you haven't noticed, the world as we know it is in a state of evolution. And things are changing. And so this conversation has to be had. Here we are showing up to the table to have this awkward conversation. So I have written a book, and it's called Unlocked. And I'm in the editing stages right now. What I've done is create this podcast, A Phone Call with Freedom, and I have an episode for each chapter. The universal language, karma, things such as that nature, belief structure. And so I have a bunch of cards here, a bunch of index cards. Each one has a chapter in my book. So I pick from the index cards, just shuffle them around. I pick one, and then we go from there. So let's see what today's topic is going to be. Drum roll, please. So funny. All right, split the deck. Channeling. Channeling. Cool. That's a cool topic. It's a cool topic. It's a great chapter. If you haven't already checked out my book, or my book's not out yet. So, but if you haven't already liked and subscribed, there we go. Then make sure you hit that like button and subscribe because it keeps me moving in the right direction. Plus, if you're feeling so inclined to do so, I will leave below the link to my website. Hop onto my website and subscribe that way so that you get notified when my book comes out, which is going to be, as they say, it's going to be bussin'. So, channeling. All right, so I try to keep these episodes semi-short, just clear, crisp, to the point. I do think that the world is in a state of evolution. I do think that things are changing and more expansive conversations need to be had. But I'm also somebody that enjoys simplicity. I think when it comes to understanding how to create a happy, healthy lifestyle for yourself, there are certain things that you need to know. As a human being, it's your birthright to understand certain things about how we work, right? The more you know, navigate differently. So that being said, I understand things now that I didn't before, which has affected my belief structure. So when you're talking about channeling, that's going to look different to everybody depending on what that individual's belief structure is. So a lot of us have been taught this idea that you don't talk to anything you can't see. You don't communicate with anything outside of your physical perception because that's unsafe. That's an unsafe place to be. But really, that's only unsafe if you're disconnected from your emotions. So I've been undergoing this process where I kind of deprogram this old relationship I used to have with my emotions, this old way of doing things, this old belief structure. I've sifted through all of it. I've moved through the emotions. I've studied and educated myself on science and spirituality and energy and vibration. I've studied the human energy field and the chakra system, and I've learned how to move these beliefs out of my subconscious and then replace them with new ones. And in many ways, I'm still in that process. So I've reevaluated my entire belief structure. After evaluating and undergoing this process, I've been implementing a new belief structure that supports my survival. So in other words, I used to go through a shift in my life and I thought I was alone in the universe. I thought that I was a victim. I thought that I was at jeopardy. I thought that life was hard. These were all thoughts that I was conditioned to think. Thoughts that I was conditioned to believe, to energize. So my whole life, that's what I spent time doing until I hit that rock bottom. And in that space, I started questioning, why is it that I believe the things that I believe? Like, what if that doesn't actually make sense to me? So you start going through this process, and among some of the categories is this idea of what happens before and after life, right? When you die, where do you go? And quite frankly, where are you coming from? So these questions became primal in the process of healing for me, because you have to have a belief in those spaces, and it has to support you, because you're going to lose loved ones. We've all been there. So what you believe about life and death is going to be one of the most important questions and beliefs that you're going to adopt in your life. And it needs to be evaluated all the time. You don't just pick a belief. Leave yourself space to expand in that category. So now, through my expansion, I've acquired and adopted a different belief. So I truly believe that we are multidimensional. I believe that there's a version of you in these other realms. There's a home realm among all of them. And there's a version of you in that home realm that knows what's going on, the whole shebang. That part of you knows what's going on and understands pieces to the puzzle that you might not at the conscious level you're at. So when I'm communicating, people talk about channeling, a lot of people, I think, have this archaic idea. It's like, oh, you're talking to ghosts. And to me, it's like, no, we're multidimensional, and there's versions of you in these different realms. And when you're channeling, you're connecting with these versions of you. That's all that it is. When I do a card reading for somebody, before every read, I let them know the way that I'm receiving my messages is I truly believe we're multidimensional. I believe there's a version of you in that realm that has all the answers that you're looking for. That's what I refer to as my higher self. When I'm receiving messages, that's where I'm getting them from. Nowhere else. Nowhere ghostly, nowhere weird, nowhere else. Just directly from that higher self version of myself in that realm. When you're subtle enough, and when you build a new relationship with your emotions, you start understanding the universal language and the way that they communicate, and you start opening yourself up to a different means of communication. And that to me is channeling. So in other words, every time I'm giving you a read, or if somebody shows up, that means your higher self is showing up to the table to have a conversation with my higher self in order to bring forth messages, right? So in other words, everything I tell everybody are things that you already know. You're already aware of this on a very deep level. I'm just simply here to provide you with encouragement and support and clarification. That's my objective, is to reunite you and reconnect you with this memory, for lack of better words, of what your capabilities are. A lot of people have been taught to see channeling through a very specific lens, and I hold the space for however anybody sees that. But to me, it's just the idea of reconstructing your core belief structure and allowing yourself to connect with that version of yourself. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm saying that we're on a ball floating in space. Your mind is going to create a construct. Does that construct offer you peace or sorrow? When I was going through one of my darkest chapters, this idea that I was alone in the universe and that no one was there and that nobody understood, it was eating me alive. I was unhappy. But the truth was, it came from a belief structure that did not serve me. At the end of the day, it was what I was choosing with my free will to believe in. I now believe that, like I said, we're multidimensional, and there's a version of me, and there's multiple versions of me, matter of fact, and I can connect with those versions of myself. I'm much bigger, and I play such a large role in the scheme of the universe, and so do you. We have to believe that. We have to begin believing that. Again, it's not about a right or wrong. It's about understanding that whatever you believe is going to have a significant impact on your life, your internal happiness, and your external reality. Once you understand that, you can start playing with this belief. You know, what do I want to believe? Do I want to believe that we're on a ball floating in space and there's no answers? If that serves you, then I'll hold the space. If that belief assists you in creating harmonious energies, then go ahead. That's all I want. I don't care what your belief is. I just want you to believe something that's going to support your survival. What that belief looks like, I don't care. To me, yeah, I channel. I communicate with myself all the time. I'm fully connected. I've adopted this belief, and quite frankly, I would never go back. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I care about what I'm thinking when I lay my head down at night. And for me, the beliefs that I've adopted have changed my life. So channeling is not this weird, creepy thing. I think that it will always be a reflection of whatever you believe. Your relationship with the universe and how that conversation looks is always going to be a reflection of what you believe. So if you watch these scary movies and these horror films and you buy into this stuff, then yes, you're going to create that type of communication between yourself and the universe. It doesn't have to be weird. It doesn't have to be spooky. It's just, hey, you know what? Maybe we're multidimensional. That would make sense. Earth is a school. That would also make sense. I've completely disconnected myself. And the question is, could I come all the way down here into the density, have my memory completely removed, and find my way back to reconnecting with myself on some type of subtle level? I think we've all waited a very long time to be in the lifetime that we are now. And we are the last generation of breaking these shadows. And we are here for the initial transition from darkness back into light. And it's a beautiful thing. This idea that communicating with the universe is scary and ghostly is kind of becoming archaic. I just refuse to believe it. I communicate with my higher self on a regular basis, and to me, it's totally normal. If you're familiar with my work, I say this all the time. I'm down here in the woods, right? And I can basically only see maybe a mile ahead of me, if I'm lucky, depending on where I'm at. When you're working with the universe, what you're doing is you're calling on a bird's eye perspective. Okay, so now I'm walking through the woods, but I'm hearing this bird's eye perspective. Okay, so, well, hey, you're going to want to make a left up here. You're going to make a right over there. Keep on going straight here, right? That bird's eye perspective, you have to have it, especially being down here in the density. Like, we all are here right now. We're having this experience. We know how difficult it is to be stripped of your memory. We don't remember who we are, where we come from. We're completely disconnected. That in itself creates this stress, right? And so, I think beginning to sift through what our beliefs are and allowing ourselves to possibly believe in this idea of being multidimensional, of communicating with these versions of yourself and allowing that to take its place and have some type of normalcy in our daily routine, connecting with ourselves, talking to ourselves. I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I feel like we're there. The media spreads that there's so many horrible things going on, but that's all just conditioning. The world is very big and there are so many beautiful things going on. At the end of the day, you can only see a mile ahead of you. Okay. So you don't know that what they're telling you is accurate at all. They could be saying, something was happening all the way across the world. You would have no idea if it's accurate or not. All right. So we have to be in this space of non-judgment and just observation right now. But I personally believe in adopting a new belief structure because I've done it and I'm continuing to do it. I'm allowing myself to continue expanding even on what my belief is. But I do absolutely believe that we are multidimensional. There's a version of you in the other realm. Everybody has a version of them. Okay. So when I meditate, when I'm channeling, if I want to call somebody specific in, I can call their higher self in. Now, they don't have the same personality as they do down here. Kind of takes us into the next podcast. Eventually, we're going to get to the topic of meditation and what the other realms look like and feel like. I highly recommend playing with what your core beliefs are and taking some time to really sit with yourself about that. Hey, higher self, I kind of feel a little lost down here. If you're real and if you're accurate, then can you give me some guidance? Can you give me a sign? And then keep your eyes open because that's when the synchronicities start flooding in. You're at Wawa, you get a ticket, 777. You're like, oh, that's funny. Pull up behind a car, license plate 777. You're like, wow, that's pretty wild, right? How many times can you get 777 in a day before you're like, okay, something's going on here? 222, 333, 444, 1111, 1234. Start just seeing all these number synchronicities. You're like, what the heck is going on here? That's the universe speaking with you. All right. So there's even more to explore when it comes to channeling, depending on, how deep you want to go on this. But as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I like to keep things simple. So I think we're going to wrap up there, but I hope that I have challenged you to evaluate some of the things that you've been taught, and kind of blend it with your personal thoughts and your personal opinions. My higher self is like, yeah. And your higher self is like, yeah, right? Like, don't you want to be a part of this, right? Who doesn't want to be a part of this? That's what I'm saying. Like, once you have that relationship with yourself, oh, game over. Game over. Seriously. So I hope that I inspired you to, as I like to say, think expansive thoughts. There's no time like right now to be thinking expansive thoughts. So I hope that I'm helping you to expand a little bit. Take a deep breath, ball all that stress up and let it go. That's right. So thank you guys so much for loving and supporting me while I love and support you. And I will see you guys next Wednesday when you hop back on for another phone call with freedom.